Welcome to the Lemons and Pineapples podcast. I'm your host, Emma O'Brien, personal development coach, HeartMath practitioner, dog photographer, and entrepreneur. In this podcast, I share tools, strategies, and amazing guest interviews to help you improve your mindset and your well-being with a sprinkle of fun and probably some mention of dogs along the way. So without further ado, let's squeeze the day. Hi folks, welcome to episode 56 of the podcast. Today my guest is Sanal Bhanu Rajan, and we're going to be talking about 4 practices you can do each day to find peace. First, a little bit about Sanal. He's a spiritual teacher, an international speaker, and a revolutionary thought leader who helps spiritual seekers transform their mind and their lives so that they can experience true freedom and fulfillment on a daily basis, and ultimately take charge of their lives to create magic and what it is they want most. Welcome to the podcast, Sanal.
Thank you, Emma. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I think the spiritual side of things is something I'm really exploring at the moment. I'm a HeartMath coach, so a lot of the HeartMath work touches on getting in touch with your own innate heart intelligence and tapping the universal energy. So from your point of view, what does it mean to have inner peace?
To have inner peace, it is essential to have a capacity to take different perceptual positions. So that becomes the key to having flexibility in allowing you to having different kind of experiences in relation to situations.
Yeah, say a bit more about that. Say a bit more about that for me.
So the capacity to when usually people get stuck in a problem. So this can be essentially one of the practices also the audience can do in their own time. So essentially what happens neurologically speaking is the part of our brain which is responsible for perception. Literally blood will not go much into that part of your brain. And blood essentially here I'm speaking in terms of energy and information, So there's literally no information or energy going to that part of the brain. So essentially we get stuck with whatever perception we have. And that's from where problem got created in the first place. So that's the reason how people get stuck with situations. So what they can do, they can do exercises, brain exercises that can literally pump up blood to that part of the brain that is literally responsible for creating perception. So that a lot of blood flows into that part of the brain. And now you think about that same problem, you will feel different, but that feeling different is a result that you're experiencing as a result of unconscious processing that has already happened on under your awareness. There's so many stuff has already happened within, and as a result, you're feeling good about this problem. No more, not stuck in that same paradigm. Just sit in front of a paper, have a big piece of paper in front of you and sit and think about whatever it is, that problem that you are stuck with presently. So you just think about it with closed eyes for maybe 10 to 15 seconds, just enough so that you get the neurology activated, so you just get it revved up a little bit. So once that happens, now you just completely forget about the problem and simply draw a mountain, a small, simple sketch of a mountain on that white paper, and now simply point arrows towards that mountain from varying degrees. So essentially what you're exercising is that part of the brain which is responsible for angles. And we have associations with the different angles, because when we are small babies and small children, we look upon people because we are quite small, and all these people, our parents, everyone is quite big. So we have that angular association with authority, with being over something, being empowered, when you, for example, when I'm teaching this with my coaching clients, most of the time they would feel like a heavy feeling when I just point the arrow from below the mountain. I just don't like it. Feel that's heavy or something. So it's just like we have association with these things. So once you exercise, like, point is not to think much, but to simply have a gut reaction to the angle it's representing. You're like, I like that. Oh yeah, that's good. That's more spacious. That feels more free. Like, so you just kind of go with the instant reaction, not going to analysis of it. And then after 2 minutes or something of it, now you have really exercised that part, and there's a lot of blood pumping and in that area. And as you're at it, you just now think about that same problem again now, after 2 minutes of doing this exercise. And then you immediately notice that big shift. Like, most of the times that shift is all that is necessary, because the problem is the problem only because you are looking at it from a very particular construct. So it's in the organization of reality within that contains and keep the problem as the problem. Otherwise, everyone will be having that problem in reality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about developing flexible thinking.
Exactly.
And being
exactly.
able
This essentially is to do that. Yeah.
Yes. And being able to see things from a different point of view. I think often we get very stuck in our own point of views and having to be right. And it's being able to just take a step back, get out of that reactive mode and say, hang on a minute, maybe I'm not right. Maybe there are other ways of looking at this, and we could come at it from a different direction.
No, that's an interesting point you made there about being right. So it's about prioritizing. It's about being right. What is my priority? Am I prioritizing being right, or am I prioritizing my state of being? So that's the question there. So I would anchor myself by asking a question like that. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? I cannot be both at the same time, because one involves rationalizing and analysis, and the other involves none of that. It's a right brain, felt sense kind of embodied experience. Has nothing to do with rationality. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question to ponder on. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? So I guess it depends on the situation, but yeah, and I think sometimes we can get so hung up on keeping with our point of view, we lose sight of the impact sitting in a very kind of blinkered attitude.
Yeah, it's mostly like I'm speaking in terms of interpersonal connections. That's when this kind of attitudes of, okay, do I want to be right, or do I want to be prioritizing my state of being? Because you can either be right at the cost of losing your ground of being, So is that really worth it? So then for me, I would use a distinction there, cost benefit analysis. So is the cost worth the benefits? So then it's a good deal I'm making. So that's how I always, these are all distinctions that allows you to make it allows you to see a different set of possibilities in the moment, of engaging with the situation.
Yeah. So we've talked and touched on people being unhappy because they're not able to shift their perception from their own fixed point of view. Why, in your opinion, are folks in general so lacking in inner peace as a collective?
In general, as a collective, it is difficult to say, because collectively, different parts of the world and different people, we have different demographics and different kind of challenges that we are dealt to face with based on where we live and where we are, and all of that. Like the challenges that I would have to deal with living here, right here in this beautiful island, would be very different from someone living in a metropolitan city where crime rate is high and there's a lot of other variables to take into consideration, So I cannot really vouch for collectively speaking because there's also war and all of these kind of
Of
elements
course.
there, so what
Yeah.
can they do, So for me, it's about like we can only co-create with what is there circumstantially. So essentially, we have to make a distinction between the circumstance and choices that we have in relation to the circumstance. Making a distinction, and most of the times, these choices, if the situation is really difficult, you would mostly find that in exercising the perception. Changing perception becomes the place where you can find some sort of a lever in changing your experience or of cohabitating with that whatever circumstantial situation is just there as like it's not really like changeable in the moment. So like that. And also what else is ownership. Ownership is a big part of the way I work with my clients. So ownership meaning you owning your experience 100% totally. So if I own it 100%, so then I'm going to be looking within. That's where I will be finding what the results that I'm experiencing at top. I'm going to be looking within at the deeper levels to see how that experience has emerged at the top. So it's like the reality is created from bottoms up, So I'm going to be looking at the bottoms like that. I'm just going to be looking into the moment of the organization conceptually. How am I organizing this moment, making sense of this moment? All of these things is where I would be looking in, and I would take complete ownership of it. If I take ownership of it, I would take responsibility, and that would allow me to not go into blaming either myself or others in the situation for that matter. Because blaming others or yourself, both of it will only take you to a disempowering place. So it's not going to serve you anyway. You're going into blaming mode. Like people don't change because you blame them, otherwise they will be changing. Yeah, so ownership is a big piece. It allows, and also seeing ourselves as creators of our experience. So then I would be asking myself, if I'm experiencing something disempowering, I would be asking myself the question, okay, what am I creating right now? And that orients me differently because that's what questions do. Questions create different orientation within, shifts your attention into a very different direction. So that's what I want to do. And the question presupposes that I am the creator. I'm asking the question from that place. Okay, what am I creating right here? So ownership is already there within it. So I'm owning that experience fully when I'm asking myself, what am I creating right now?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, is that a lot of the problems we have interpersonally and a lot of the problems that we're seeing showing up in the world are a lack of responsibility. Because I have noticed people are very quick to shift blame. They're very quick to find somebody to point the finger at rather than saying, hang on a minute, how have I contributed to what's happened here? And I'm going to put a bit of a caveat with this, really, because I think not every situation that's negative that you find yourself in is you can look at it and go, how am I responsible for this? So let's say somebody is robbed and attacked. That's not you're not responsible for that. So that's not that. I'm just going to be clear here. That's not what I'm saying here with that. But I think if we're talking about interpersonal disagreements, if we have a look at the state of the environment, we can all take some responsibility for what we're doing to make a difference. We're all collectively responsible for the plastic in the sea and for the arguments we have with our friends and family to some extent. And you can't always make big shifts, but I think it's making small changes on a regular basis where you will see something different happening.
You make these kind of small changes within you, the small changes, sometimes you would notice that many of those bigger problems doesn't seem to be a problem anymore.
Yeah.
That's because it's just like our brain and our everything works like a rhizome. It's everything is interconnected. And one thing, when you change that one thing, it changes so many other things just like that.
Yeah.
So many times when a person comes to me with a big problem, I would rather just tell them to just, let's just keep that there for a moment and work with something small. And just I want to just show them, demonstrate to them they can change, and then they're like, you know what, this works. I think I can change this stuff. So I don't want to get them into that big stuff. Like I've been trying to change this for like 35 years of my life, and I've tried everything, and like, when they come with all that stories, baggage,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we've all got baggage, so I think it's a lifelong process of unpacking it, chucking some of it out, recycling it, and repacking it. So,
Most of the times, what we have is actually pretty simple that we don't often hear spoken about at all in the mental health industry. That's the thing with synesthesia. We don't hear often. If it's a big thing, everyone will be, that's a big buzzword, but it's not. Why is it not? The thing is, we all have triggers. We all have different triggers. So think of these different triggers as different handles, but to reach the same thing within. So that's synesthesia. See? So you need to understand all those different triggers. What is the synesthesia that's within that's getting activated? So once you can see that, that's when you can make a real shift. So most of the times the problem is not created on the level of language and words and logic. It's completely beneath the level of language, sensory based associations and identifications. Two things get completely jammed together. One thing happened and it was a bad experience, and all that similar stimulus happens and they just don't like it. And then, and they find also logical reasons why they just don't like that stuff. And yeah, so it's just like so many of our stuff is just like about so many triggers we just have sensory based in the world with the voice tonality of a person. If someone says something in a certain way, or immediately you go into a certain synesthesia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think our triggers can be our greatest teachers if we're prepared to shift our perceptions and have a look at them and question,
exactly.
this, I'm feeling very triggered. And often I have found people don't necessarily have the self-awareness to know they've been triggered by something. So it takes a little bit of inner work to get to the point where you can go, I noticed somebody said something in a certain tone of voice. I'm triggered, but actually it's not about that person. It's something in me that they have triggered that's maybe old. And that's the power in the work of going in and having a look and saying, why am I triggered by that? And how can I unpack that and heal it so
Exactly.
that it doesn't continue to trigger me?
You can reflect, and then you will start to see, oh, not only does that trigger me to this place, this also seemed to be triggering me to that same place. So then you start to see, okay, it has nothing to do with the triggers. There is many different stuff on the outside, like triggers like that, but it all takes you to one place. So unless you have a handle on that synesthesia and make shift there and make different attachment there with different thing, attach it to a resourceful state for that matter. That's maybe my work. Mainly my work is to just find that chasing that synesthesia that has been elusively just escaping their attention. And yeah.
So can you share, you shared one practice of drawing your mountain on a piece of paper and starting to have a look at different directions that things are coming in from. Can you share 3 other practices people can do in their daily lives to help them find a bit more inner peace?
Okay. So I would suggest a practice of mantras, So the mantras are, whatever happens, I am okay. Whatever I do, I am okay.
Okay.
whatever I say, I'm okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So allows people to really ground themselves in themselves. So basically, what we are doing by making these kind of ideas, this is an idea. Whatever happens, I am okay. It's an idea. But once you ground yourself in that idea, a state emerges from there, from that grounding in that idea. So that's the state. That's the groundedness that you want, uh, from where you want to operate from and meet the world. So this can be a practice that you can, if you have like an event, if you have an important event, just before it, just simply say, whatever happens, I'm okay. Not like, oh my God, I have to, I really have to make this even this thing work, you know? Just no, come on, you're not gonna be showing up at your best with that attitude, with that sort of a, because you're gonna be immediately alarming your threat response system, your uh, fear and alarm system is on, very active. You're in a fight and flight mode, survival mode. But when you're in survival mode, you are not in a creative mode. These are both different modes of
Mm-hmm.
operations,
Yeah.
to operate from.
Yeah.
So working from a creative mode, you need a strong grounding. A grounding that whatever happens, I'm okay. Then
Mm.
only it paves the way for
Mm.
you to show up at your best and meet the situations, and have it builds in this sort of like a confidence in yourself that you're bringing in this competent self to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever happens, I'm okay. I'm not a fragile little thing, I'm not gonna just break easily. Whatever happens, I'm okay. So that builds in resilience within
Mm.
the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a quality that we all want to develop. So without much resilience, we are, susceptible to a lot of traumas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not everyone get traumatized because not all minds are similar, So some minds are more susceptible to traumatic experiences than others.
Mm.
When you build in a lot of fragility within by telling in a lot of incompetent ideas like, oh my God, I cannot handle that, I cannot handle this. Oh my
Yeah.
God, if that happens, it's going to be so terrible. Oh my God, I just really cannot imagine that. And, this kind of self-talk and everything builds in a lot of fragility. And
Yeah.
then you overcompensate that fragility and this lack of power by this over excessive neediness of control in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you overcompensate for the lack of power by
Yeah.
the need for more and more control over
Yeah.
everything. And but the life is anything but a linear thing. It is a
Yeah.
complex, dynamic, emerging, ever evolving, changing.
Here with using the mantras is it's about bringing yourself back into the present moment and stopping getting caught up in the self-talk of what if this happens, what if that happens, what if this happens. We actually just say whatever happens, I'm okay. And in saying that, you're bringing yourself very centrally into the now, which stops all of the catastrophizing and the worry. I think it's a really great way of just kind of stopping the imposter and stopping the, often it's a voice that's trying to keep us safe, but it can be very unhelpful. I have found one has to learn to just go, thanks very much for your concern. However, we now have to go and do a presentation, so you're not helping me by telling me all the things that could go wrong. Whatever happens, I'm okay. Here I am, and off I'm going to go. What other practices can you share for people to help them really cultivate a feeling of presence and inner peace?
Yeah. So usually I can, so with situations, fear is a big area that we all have to deal with when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to our life. So the situations where we are fearful of, and so what we can do uh, is, there's a practice that I help with people is where you just imagine the situation, whatever you're fearful of, and usually the nature of the the nature of these kind of images that comes up in relation to that triggers us this kind of fear response is they often tend to have a frozen nature to it. It's frozen in nature, these images that's showing up. So the way is just think about this situation for a moment, and then just as enough time for you to just get that kind of felt sense level. You can feel it, the the phenomenology of that fear within, and then you can close your eyes and you can just imagine yourself shooting into space, and now you are just kind of moving through all sort of directions in space, in all sort of varying directions and angles and everything. So basically, you're exercising that part of the brain that deals with a lot of movement, So essentially, you're moving without moving. You cannot do like this kind of thinking and physical activities, they don't go together. So essentially, you're moving your brain. The brain is getting the idea that you're moving. So there's a lot of blood gonna flow into that part. And then after you exercise like that for 2, 3, 5 minutes, just in some exercise, just seeing yourself. So you can either be having your own form, or it doesn't matter whether you don't have a body with you. You are just seeing yourself as a point. You can be just sensing yourself just moving and the angles and like all of that. So however it is okay. So it's the point is to just have that sensory circuits of movement running. That's the point of it. So once you do that, and now you come back and just think about the same image, same situation that you were fearful of, and see how you feel, and notice if there is any difference. And if there is any difference, acknowledge that difference and appreciate that difference. Because when you don't appreciate the difference, then it is so easy to just notice at what's not changing.
Yeah.
So when people are telling like nothing is changing, I would usually ask them, so what are you really focusing on that gives you the feeling that nothing is changing?
Yeah.
Because they're definitely noticing at something that gives them the feeling it's not changing, but things are all changing all the time.
Yeah, I think we're just so programmed to focus on the negative, aren't we? And focus on what we've not got as opposed to what we have got. And I think sometimes when we're making changes in life and you're trying to shift a mindset and you're dealing with a challenging situation, often the changes are tiny, but they're there, and it's about refocusing your brain onto, all right, I'm not quite where I want to be. I'm not free of fear entirely. I don't think it's possible to ever be completely free of it. However, I feel a little bit less triggered. I feel a little bit more confident about doing the thing that's scaring me. And it's celebrating those small wins is a great way to build your self-confidence as well. And I think often self-confidence is one of those states that really plays into how at peace you feel with yourself as well.
Yeah, it brings me to that statement from the Bible: to those who have, yet more shall be given. To those who don't have, even what they have shall be taken away. So if you are something with the guitar and you don't appreciate that something that you are with the guitar, and you focus on what you are not with it, then even what you are with it will be taken away. So you show up even you don't show up at your best, and you don't even have those stuff that you wear, or else you could have appreciated it, and more shall be given to you.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, it's a kind of universal law, isn't it? Of of what you focus on grows, and if you're focusing on lack, that's all you're going to see and get, really. It's one last tactic you could share for tapping inner peace that people can do at home that's easy for them.
Yeah. So one easy neurological hack, that you can do that is actually been adopted in and incorporated in this many meditation practices actually is this. If you're familiar with Buddhist Vipassana meditation and many of these practices, you'll say at the core of it, there is this attitude of witnessing or observing,
Yeah.
right? And you would do that practice over the course of 10 days, to exercise that sort of like a neurological wiring towards different states of being. So the neurologically speaking, uh, any given state that you are experiencing, the time that a state can last is anywhere between 10 to 30 seconds. You see, that's it. Not a single state of being. So you'll ask, so how are these people who are depressed just maintaining their state of being? They're really good at recreating that state of being. Really good at it. So even when we have a problem, you can see a blessing in disguise there. Some abilities, some hidden abilities that they have that allows them to maintain that problem, So you can utilize that as a secondary gain for them later on, if that's something interesting. But apart from that, this is something that you can do where you can bring in a lot of shift in life like that, where a 30-second being the time window, a state being having the capacity to last. So all you have to do is just having the capacity to observe a state of being, meaning a rising of a state and the falling of a state. You only have to do that for 30 seconds without engaging with any self-talk with it. 30 seconds. So if you can cultivate that, you don't have to do a long time of meditation, because the point is not to have that attitude or that sort of a neurological wiring towards all states of being, because we definitely want all of our good states of being to just have that snowball effect and become bigger and richer, and we experience all the richness of living and life and beauty and all of that. Otherwise, we don't get to have any of it. We lose both ends. So that I don't agree with the method of traditional Vipassana meditation where you approach with every state of being like that. We only have to be smart with it. We only have to do it with the disempowering states of being. Once you become aware, you're like, okay, if I can do it right, I only have to do the stuff for 30 seconds and I can get this over.
Yeah.
And just explore with it. So I would encourage all the people who are listening to the podcast to explore with these ideas that I have been sharing through this talk, to explore, experiment with it, play with it. But I would not encourage them to practice with it, because practice is a word that I hate. I will play with it. It's nice. Nicer frame. You change the frame, you change the game.
Nice. I like that. Change the frame, change the game. I think this is a very powerful tool of being able to just witness what's coming into your mind and witness your feelings without the attachment to them and without the chatter around what does this mean? Because
for 30 seconds. For 30 seconds, that's very key, because when we think of meditation, when we think about state, it just feels like it's a big thing. But when we put them into perspective, okay, the maximum time a state can last is 30 seconds. That's it, So if I do this thing straight, I should be able to get it done in 30 seconds. So that's the attitude to bring to the table. Like all this attachment and all of these, that makes it very philosophical and vague, and you don't know. When you put it in really perspective, do you get this? It's just 30 seconds. Then a person will be like, okay, fuck, I think I can do that. 30 seconds, that should be doable. That should be at least cultivatable. A 30-second skill.
Yep. I'm sure
But if you
30 seconds
like,
is good.
if I want to be thought-free for half an hour, good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's a very different job.
Sanal, thank you. This has been a really interesting conversation today. Thank you for being with me. Where can people find you online?
Well, people who are interested in this methodology, they can find who want to work with me. they can go to the website www.spiritualogic.com. So they can see case studies of people who have worked with these methodologies and over the course of 2-3 months, and they're speaking for their results after an year and stuff such has passed. And also I worked in university, so I had like a lot of details about how this whole spiritual logic came about is there. It's a whole non-dogmatic approach to practical spirituality in life without having to take big, crazy leap of faith in a new set of dogmatic beliefs to make something work now. Because that's what usually demands in spirituality. You kind of have to buy into so many things to make some things work, you know.
Cool. I will put your website in the show notes. I'll also put your social media links in there so people can go ahead and find you and connect with you and find out more about your work. Thank you again for being with me today.
Yeah, it was a beautiful co-creation. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And thanks, folks, for listening and for joining us today. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please share with your friends and be sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. To find out more about my one-on-one coaching, please visit my website, which is emmaobriencoach.com. And remember, folks, when life gives you lemons, you can always choose another fruit. See you next time.